Hey, I'm Dustin,
And I'm Brandy.
and we welcome you to another episode of, I believe we're still calling it Fuzzy Memories from the Road, and something like that. Even the title is elusive, but we like to go back and revisit some of our old Ghost Hunters International cases, and they are now available on Peacock TV, so you can check them out there. And today we're going to talk about a couple of cases we did in Romania. The first one is Banffy Castle. Is that right, Miss Green?
That is correct. That was in Cluj-Napoca, Romania. And so it was kind of close to the back end of the episode in Transylvania kind of region. Um, and honestly, I have to tell you, all I kind of remember about this location was it was literally in ruin, and they had an architectural professor that had invited all of his students in, and it was like an active classroom where they
Right.
were literally rebuilding as we were there.
Yeah, the whole place was constantly under restoration, which kind of fueled the idea of maybe this is residual activity that's always being stirred up because they're constantly working on things, they're constantly hammering away on stuff. I remember one of the claims was that the tools would disappear, and that would get people kind of like, a little bit nervous because where did this stuff go? They come there every day, and now things are missing. Honestly, my biggest memory of this place was we had our lunch break, which was, somewhere usually around 10 or 11 at night. And coming back, I went down to the truck or something, and then coming back and seeing guys, local guys in sheets, three guys running across one of the areas and like making wailing sounds and thinking they're going to fall and kill themselves because the place is still like in, disrepair. But they thought it was quite hilarious, and then production had to kick them out.
It's so funny too because I feel like a lot of the viewers probably assumed that anytime we went to a location, we like announced our arrival, like, we're here, American crew, Ghost Hunters International.
Yeah,
We didn't. Normally it was very like on the down low. And
yeah,
so clearly word got out to these
right.
students that
Yeah.
we were a ghost hunting, team.
Dear God.
Um, Funny enough, so that was your biggest memory of
Yeah,
the location.
yeah.
My biggest memory, you ready?
Okay, let's hear it.
My biggest memory was Andy Andrews. It was you and I standing there, and he comes up all excited. Look what I found! And he had something in his hand, and I'm like, what? Thinking, well, maybe it's an artifact, or,
Right.
who knows? It's owl scat.
I remember that.
What?
He liked to
He
find
had
things.
owl poop in his hand, and that wasn't enough that he just like picked up owl poop.
Right. How do
He
you
was
know
like
it's owl poop?
rubbing it through his fingers.
Yeah.
And we're like, first of all, ew. And
Right.
secondly, how do you know what you're holding is owl poop?
Yeah.
Well, I did a sixth grade paper on owls, and we were like, that is the most random fact. I think,
Yeah.
honestly, I think of the entire show.
He had
The most
great
random.
stories, like great weird little sidebars and stories that like I think were actually kind of interesting. Like, look, that's what stands out to you, like maybe they should have used those kind of things more.
Hey, I think he would have had a bigger following if everyone could have really seen the true Andy
Yeah.
Andrews.
Let him like be quirky and fun and do his like a lot of times I feel like they edit everybody down to fit the role. Like you were the female investigator. I know I'm putting female in quotes because you're definitely a female, but you were the female investigator. Andy was like the debunker. Like Barry's the Irish guy. I don't know. Rob and I are just like the random white dudes and just doing our thing. It was very odd.
That was so true. It was such a cookie cutter format, which I think really was a downfall to the show. Unfortunately, like, I'm
Yeah,
sure you feel the same way, where I know we filmed some really great stuff,
yeah,
never made air. Again, I don't know what's on like the blooper reels or on the DVD
Right.
set, which I'm very interested in knowing. So if you have the DVDs, let us know what's on
Great.
there.
Nice to see him.
But like I remember a different location. I scared Barry like out of his shorts. And I
Right.
was always a very like straight-laced, like barely smiled ever serious investigator that they portrayed me. They never showed it. And it was like the funniest thing
Yeah.
that ever happened on the show.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you think the episode would have been better or worse if they had shown the owl scat?
Yeah, well, I think that episode specifically, yes. I think it would have made it a lot more interesting because there wasn't a heck of a lot going on there. But I think overall, and listen, I worked production for years, so I understand the formula. I understand the way they do things. And like, it wasn't easy for I know you give kudos to all the crew that were out there busting their butts, the people back there editing, putting it together. It's not easy work for sure. And you're trying to take pieces of the story someone's relaying to you from overseas. So there's a lot that goes on, but I just kind of felt like there could have been a little bit more color for each of us and about the locations and those weird little fun moments that I think you connect with the people more and then you're more involved in what's going on. Even when there's not something paranormal or scary happening, it's still interesting to watch because it's like, well, what the heck are they going to do now? Like what does Andy have in his hands? Is he going to lick that wall? Is this like what is going on? But it's fun that way.
I think he deserved his own like section of the show. Like, what will Andy do?
That would have been great. Yeah, like an old like Mr. Wizard's World like type corner of the show. That would have been fun. I'd
Yeah,
watch that.
no, for sure. The only in terms of like potentially paranormal, anything odd that happened there that I remember was that Barry was he had two cameras set up. He had a regular camera and then he had the full spectrum camera. They were sitting side by side and he was taking pictures in tandem with each other of the front section of one of the main buildings. And on the full spectrum, he had caught this really weird, like glowing object that clearly was moving. And the regular camera didn't pick anything up. So honestly, I don't know if we just sort of deemed it as interesting,
Right.
potentially paranormal,
Yeah.
or if we had deemed it haunted. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I remember there was something anomalous that was captured in one of the photos, and Barry was always really good with that. I thought for somebody who really enjoyed visual evidence, I always thought Barry did a nice job with that. He always tried to make sure everything was on a tripod. If they were working, he had the remote, clickers for them and everything. Trying to make sure everything was measured out. Never just one photo, always at least three, if not, I remember hundreds.
Oh, yeah.
Like he would sit there and just like hold it down. It would be ridiculous. It's like, who's going to review those? That's you, Barry. But I think, it oftentimes I kind of felt like that's where the payoff came, that's where you'd find some weird stuff. And at least you had plenty of other things to kind of balance it against to see if it was something truly anomalous, if it could have been paranormal, or if there was an explanation for it,
Right. Yeah. No, I think for being the first episode that I had ever done in Romania, it was definitely a cool location. I guess I probably just wish that more happened in terms
I remember
strange.
I remember Cluj-Napoca kind of being out of Romania. I remember Cluj-Napoca almost kind of had like a real dialed down feel of like New York, like in comparison to the other places out there. Like there was a little hustle and bustle with the crowd. There was like more of like a youthful energy flow, like people walking around doing things.
I remember randomly we were driving through, and look, this was tough because what a lot of viewers don't know is that like we would generally fly into a main hub, but then if we had locations that were in countries that were right next to each other, we oftentimes drive literally through countries. I mean, our road trips were pretty phenomenal,
Yeah.
I have to say. And so I remember, I think we were filming the Lady Bathory, Kachice Castle, and
Yeah.
we were staying in Hungary. We drove through Budapest and like drove into Romania.
Yeah.
And you're right, Cluj-Napoca was kind of very metropolitan. I remember seeing a cowboy western, like American steak
Yeah.
place, like in Cluj-Napoca. It was so
Right.
weird.
It was so, I can't remember what country we're in. I want to say it was the Philippines, but somewhere we were, there was a Kenny Rogers Roasters. And I remember being like, how the heck did that get here? Like, it
I'm
just
pretty
did not
sure.
fit.
I'm pretty sure that was probably the Philippines.
I think it was, but man, I was just so impressed because, like my diet is very, not that I'm like trying to stay healthy, but I'm just super picky. So like, it was hard for me to find anything to eat. And then to see something like that, it was like, oh my God, my favorite place to eat when we did this place, when we did the Banffy Castle,
Yeah.
Gogolasa Infuriata, which translated was the angry donut. And I bought bags of these and left them at everyone's door. You get 3 for $1. It was just a window. It wasn't, you couldn't even go in the store. It was just a window. And the sign was like of a donut and he had his hand up. He looked angry, like steam coming off his head or like he stunk or something. But you get they're like a jelly donut, but they were warm and they had like vanilla, caramel, or chocolate pudding in them. And you get 3 for $1 and they were amazing. Go out to the Furiata.
I was going to ask you about that. I couldn't remember what country that was in.
Yeah.
I still to this day remember that place because you were obsessed over it.
I was there every day, as often as I could be.
Maybe more than once a day. I don't know.
Good, yeah. We had to go early though, because once they were out, they were out. It wasn't like this goes on all day. The Angry Donut operates from certain amount of time, and then once you're on the Angry Donuts,
you were the first in line.
I really was. There were mornings I was waiting out there. It was awesome. Love that place.
Well, moving on from amazing donuts in Cluj-Napoca,
yeah,
we are going to talk about one of, I think, my favorite locations, not because anything really happened, it was just the history of it.
Yeah.
Can anyone see? Dracula's Castle, Poenari Castle.
Yeah. That place was that was my place. I like bucket list. I remember watching like most haunted places in the world, like years prior to doing the show, and being like, I have to climb those steps. I have to go to Dracula's castle.
Yeah, and what a lot of people don't know is those steps. That's 1,480 stairs, and they're like jagged stairs. They're not like perfectly paved. And you and I, we were carrying up heavy pelican
big pelican cases. Yeah.
All the way up.
Yeah.
Our poor camera guy, Brian Donnell.
Yeah. And it was raining. I remember it was raining. Both nights we were there, it was like rainy and cold. And you're carrying these cases up. And like you said, they were like these tiny jagged stairs. And like you zigzag up the mountain back and forth. Like it's not even straight. So you can never like just get into a groove. It was awful. And then do you remember, Brandy, we get to the top, you open the cases, you take out the DVR and the monitor, and there's no power on top of Poenari Castle.
Because it's legitimately just castle ruins, like out in the middle of nowhere, much like it probably was back when Dracula owned it. Like there is nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. So, I can't remember like how in depth they got with my case download on Dracula's, but basically what made this place so cool is, so they have what's the other one in Romania that they
another castle?
Yeah, that they tell everyone is Dracula's castle.
Yeah, it's really fancy.
Not. This is truly Poenari Castle was actually his castle. He slept there. He lived there with his wife.
Right.
And they'd chosen it because it sat on a vista looking out over the Arges River. And if you've ever read like an old Dracula book, this is where you see all of the Ottoman Turks on pikes on the hillside going up the castle. That whole mountainside was covered in bodies.
Yeah.
So just walking, I mean, it was exhausting, don't get me wrong. Like,
Right.
it was hard to think of anything else than like possibly dying, but walking up that mountainside,
Yeah.
just recounting like the history of that place, it was just amazing to me.
Yeah. No, it was. And it was like you felt like the whole place kind of was alive in history, like in thinking of those stories and imagining what it was like to see all that. And then you get there and there's a hallway, like a hallway, it's stone on both sides and long, so it's a hallway. And then there's one wall in the back that was like maybe, I don't know, like 2 stories high-ish. And then the rest was all smaller. And then like they were trying to rebuild it because there was a line I remember of where the original foundation still was for the castle and then what they kind of rebuilt. I remember after the episode aired, somebody sent me a message on MySpace and said, "You guys are too afraid to go in there." I'm like, "Go in where? We were. There's nothing there. Like there was no, nothing was covered. Like nothing was finished. It was a hallway, a high wall, and another little like room off to the side."
Yeah, I remember there was like this, it used to be one of the towers, but it like had broken in half
Oh,
or something.
yeah.
So it was just basically this stone pit. And it smelled like urine. So you could tell that everyone that went up to like see Dracula's castle,
This guy right here.
that's where they went to the bathroom.
But
Yeah,
what a
but
story.
you had some other interesting things happening with
Yeah, it
you.
was that
This
was
guy,
that was kidney stone time.
yeah, this guy, I will tell you, it was hard enough, like not being sick, walking up multiple times for what, 3 days?
I think we did 2 or 3 days there.
Yeah,
Yeah, at
walking
least.
up and down those almost 1,500 steps. And he has a kidney stone.
Family heritage. That's some kids get trust funds. I get kidney stones handed down. That was one of them, and that was an awful one because it was a lot of carrying stuff and walking around all night and just feeling awful and nauseous. But yeah, I had to recycle a lot of water that evening, so that shower, was useful. But
Thanks, Dracula.
growing up as a kid, wanting to go to Dracula's castle, and then going there and not experiencing really anything paranormal, but being able to say, "Well, I left my mark there." Say that.
No, I mean, what I remember from it was an amazing view of the Transfolger. I think that's what they
Mountain
call it.
range.
Like highway that's like literally cut into the mountains.
Yeah,
It's pretty amazing. Uh,
yeah,
the stars. I don't think I've ever seen that many stars in the sky, ever. Um, and just driving through Transylvania, it's really, it's so odd
yeah.
because you feel like part of them have totally embraced this pop culture Dracula kind of icon legend thing that it's blown up to be. But then where we were driving even further into like the country, into like these small villages where they don't have cell phones, they don't have electricity. You have the old woman with her scarf
I remember that.
walking her cow down the
Whacked
street
it.
with a stick.
Yeah,
Like, it's amazing. And I think it was like only a year before we got there, they had a nun up in that area that was murdered. They tried to perform an exorcism on her because they thought she was possessed. This is the Orthodox Church up there in the middle of the mountains, and they ended up killing her. So this idea of vampires, this idea of possession, these paranormal things are very relevant in those small little communities
right.
that have kind of stayed away from modernization. So I don't know, it kind of added, like we've been to a lot of places, but I feel like that sort of made it feel more real to me.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I kind of feel like the stories and the legends out in those darker places that are not so, technologically advanced, and perhaps even the ways of thinking have not evolved to our current way. And there's a lot of old storytelling and tradition kind of being handed down. Like it was kind of like stepping back in time a little bit. I remember seeing it always reminded me of like the old fishwife, with the thing on her head, like whacking the cow going down the road. I remember the hotel. Okay, a couple of things about Romania, and God bless them. I like the Romanian people, but the hotel we were in was god awful, which was not uncommon. But being out there in the middle of nowhere, I remember going into the bathroom in my room, going into my bathroom, and I'm looking around thinking, there's no shower. There's a toilet in the corner and there's a sink, but there's no shower, but there's knobs on the wall. And I went and turned the knobs on the wall, and the shower head was just over like the bare bulb in the center of the ceiling. So you just went and kind of stood there. It was like it was just raining on you. Like the water pressure was awful. I remember the towels were like knobby and plasticky. So it's like you were just kind of pushing water off your body. And I swear to God, this is absolutely true. The toilet paper that we had looked like the pink wafer cookies that you got as a kid. It had that texture. You're wiping your backside, your most sensitive spots, with this hard plasticky pink stuff. It was awful.
Yeah, toilet paper there is like this wide. Our toilet paper is like that. Theirs is like, it's like, why?
I don't know.
So besides all of that, I was on what I now deem as the Romanian diet when we were up there, because basically, I don't know if you remember this, Dustin, but we had two options. You had either horse meat or boneless, skinless chicken breast. Like, the options weren't that great. And
it was hard to tell them apart, too.
Oh, yeah. And so my one meal a day consisted of just a tiny piece of boneless, skinless chicken breast, a little bit of fries, and a mini Coke. And that is all I ate every day, once a day. I think I got down to like 110 pounds when I was in Romania.
I think, if I remember correctly, I want to say we filmed at Poenari before we did the other. Like they filmed them and flip-flopped them. Because I remember being really hungry, and then all of a sudden going to a town and like with the donuts. And I remember getting a really good linguine aliole with red pepper in it. But I remember being out here. So here's my restaurant. I remember going to a restaurant, and this is great because one of my 8x10s that I have at events is of me standing in Dracula's hallway with the GHI shirt on and my jeans. And I always, if I have time to talk to the people, there's a spot on the knee of my jeans that is stained from dinner. We had went by ourselves, just the cast, to a place, and you remember you can smoke inside the restaurants there. And so the glass was like yellow and brown with nicotine. And we go in and we're excited because it's been horse meat and skinless chicken. And here's a little restaurant. This might be okay. We got approved to go here. And we had a huge waiter. He looked like a villainous waiter from like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. And he came over and he gave us these plastic menus. We can't read anything. And I remember Barry kind of deciphered that there was a soup. And he tried to ask the guy what the soup was. And the guy's like, no. But he's like, oh, no. How about this one here? No. And like we went through like multiple options. I'm like, the guy's just mad, just ordered the chicken thing, like just be done. And like finally, like he got the waiter so aggravated, the guy just came back with the horse meat and the chicken. And I couldn't eat anymore. And I remember they had bread, and I have olive oil and bread, and I'm just dipping it in the smoke-filled air and trying to eat this stuff. And then as the waiter went to get the check, I accidentally hit the plate and I spilled the olive oil all over the thing. And now it's dripping off the tablecloth onto my jeans. And I'm thinking, this guy's going to freaking kill me when he comes back and sees what a mess I made. And I gathered up all of the plates from everybody else and covered the stain. And I remember paying and leaving as fast as we could and seeing the man shake his fist in anger through the dirty window as we walked away. And every time I see that picture with the stain on my jeans, I remember him. It's like, oh, my olive oil experience. So awful.
Who would have thought olive oil would have trumped the moonshine at the base of Poenari Castle.
Dear
But
God.
that story was pretty amazing, so I don't know.
So as food was always limited, I always traveled with peanut butter. I'd buy it wherever we went. It was cheap. You could buy a loaf of bread, so you can always make sandwiches. And I'd have Pop-Tarts from home. And he was like the production assistant for that case or whatever. And he had the Romanian fellow. For some reason, I don't know if he personally just had never seen peanut butter or if they just don't have it out in that rural part where he lived, but he was excited by it. And I remember trading it for moonshine thinking, this would be a good deal. And then having a sip and thinking I was going to be blind and just giving it away to everybody else because I didn't want to lose my vision.
Oh, Carpathian Mountains.
Yeah.
They
good
never
times.
disappoint.
Thank you, Dracula. You really suck. That was awful.
Good times, good times.
Indeed.
All right, well, that's all I kind of remember of Romania, to be honest with you.
Nothing paranormal happened there. We didn't have anything because we're outside all night. I think we had one scratch EVP, but we ditched it because you couldn't really make anything out.
Yeah, I mean, I know we tried the triangulation method of investigating,
Yeah.
but and we actually did that. A quick little like note, because I don't know about you, but I get a lot of people asking me, why do you always investigate at night?
Yeah.
Well, this one we actually investigated at like 5 a.m. It was like just as the sun was rising.
Right.
So,
yeah.
and we still
I
got
remember,
nothing.
I remember getting some really cool pictures from that, actually, seeing the sunrise over the mountains and stuff. It was really beautiful.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Well, but hey, you know what? At least we can say we've been to Dracula's castle.
The real one, indeed.
The real one.
Well, thanks
right.
everybody for watching another episode here, huh?
Yeah, I think we're good for this one. Until next time, be sure you're watching all of the old GHI episodes on where, Dustin?
I believe it's on that Peacock TV there. Free to watch.
I think you're right. All right, see you guys later.
Yeah.